A California man's acquittal has his supporters calling it vindication and his critics worried about vigilante justice. A Santa Clara County jury found William Lynch not guilty yesterday of assaulting a retired priest named Gerald Lindner 2 years ago. Lynch told the jurors that that priest had raped him and had raped his brother as well when they were just 7 and 5 years old. Lynch said he went to demand the priest sign a confession and then punched him from an irrational fear that was triggered by memories of the abuse. The jury, for their part, failed to reach a verdict on the misdemeanor assault charge.
This case is about Mr. Lynch and revenge outside of the law. Mr. Lynch drove 50 miles, used a fake name, put on gloves, and beat up and bloodied an elderly man.
Well, that was how the prosecutor saw it. The jury did not agree, so to speak. The retired priest got on the stand, and he denied that the abuse ever happened. But then in a very strange twist, just 2 days into his testimony, his attorney stood up and said, Father Gerald Lindner will not testify any longer, invoking the Fifth Amendment right to self-incrimination. William Lynch joins me now live from San Francisco, and one of his attorneys, Pat Harris, is also with me live on the telephone. So, Mr. Lynch, let me ask you, were you expecting to get the result that you got? There were 3 charges. One was they were hung, and the other 3, they said they didn't agree.
It was actually unexpected. From the beginning, I knew that I was going to come forward and tell the story honestly and take responsibility for what I had done, unlike the church and Father Jerry. So I was expecting to go to jail.
So I think a lot of people at this stage would be asking the question, if that priest did what you say he did, why on earth isn't he in jail? Why aren't there criminal charges against him? What's the answer?
The answer is the statute of limitations. At the time of when I was violated, I had till I was 13. And the current law just prevents anybody from having a voice and being empowered, and that's really all that victims want. We just want to be able to seek justice any way that we can, and I think the jury made a decision in the face of a system that's failing the people, and it's failing to protect children, and that's the whole reason why I acted and did what I did.
Well, tell me a little bit about what you did. I heard the prosecutor, in his words, say you drove 50 miles and then you just let him have it. But is there more to it than that?
Yeah, there's more to it than that. I mean, my time with Father Jerry is a frozen moment in time, and my growth has been stunted on many levels around that. He's always had a hold over me. He haunts me in my nightmares, and I've always known I needed to confront him. And I finally got the courage to do that, and I always had a fear of doing it because I was afraid of what might happen, frankly.
Are you at all concerned that this message that the jury sent, while clearly good for you, because you're not going to have to face the music for it, might inspire vigilante justice among others, and that could lead to something far more serious than, say, a bruise or a broken nose or some kind of a superficial injury? It could lead to something far more serious than that.
I can see the potential for that, and that's why I'm encouraging people not to do what I did. I just want people to understand that I acted out of desperation because this man was still down there and children's lives were at stake. I feel that the jury made a decision that reflects the consciousness of society right now, and I actually would love to talk to them and encourage them to come to my Facebook page at William Lynch Defense Fund, because I'd like to find out what they were thinking and why they made the decision that they made. But I think they're sending a message, and you're seeing it around the country with the William Lynn situation and Sandusky and whatnot, that people are tired of what's happening. And really the main problem, the main issue that needs to be resolved is statute of limitations, because otherwise, if the law fails and children are at harm, people are going to act. They're going to do what they need to do to protect their children.
I think you make a very good point. There has been a lot of outcry about just how short that statute is, given the fact that the victims in these cases are kids who don't even know oftentimes that what's happening is wrong until much, much later and outside of the statute. Let me ask your attorney, Mr. Harris, if you could for me, sir. In cases like this, and your client just mentioned the Sandusky case, do you think that this was a case of jury nullification? And for our audience who might not know what that is, that's a situation where a jury really truly believes that there was an infraction, but they just can't find it in their hearts to say guilty.
Actually, part of it was definitely jury nullification. There were 4 counts in all, 4 possibilities they voted on. 3 of them they voted not guilty. I don't believe those were jury nullification because the evidence, quite frankly, wasn't there. But the simple assault was what Will admitted he did, the misdemeanor assault. He admitted he did that. The jury basically said, we don't care. We think what he did for a reason. We think this priest he's one of the worst of the worst. He's not just somebody that raped Will and his brother. This is a man who the church has paid out. At least we know 12 victims, and there are at least 20 more that are out there that are claiming that he has raped and sodomized them. So the jury got to hear a little bit of that. They got a sense of what kind of a person this was, and I think that's why you did see the jury nullification. And
Mr. Harris, I do need to add that there have been no criminal charges against him, and he's never been convicted of the accusations that you make. So at this point, those are strictly allegations, and I must absolutely enforce that what you're saying are allegations, despite the civil lawsuit that your client prevailed in back in 1998, in which he was awarded $625,000, and his brother as well. I do need to ask you this. When Father Lindner was on the stand and talked and talked and talked until he stopped talking and invoked his 5th rights, was there anything that he said that could lead to perjury charges? Could Father Lindner actually end up back in court and be charged criminally?
Absolutely, and the Santa Clara DA's office needs to do it, because at the very end of his testimony, he was asked, did you molest Will Lynch? He said no. And he said, did you molest his brother? He said no. The district attorney had already, in her opening statement, told the jury that, in fact, they knew he had molested him and that he would lie about it. Sure enough, he got on the stand, he lied about it. As soon as he answered those questions, it was the very next day that his attorney got up and said, we're not going forward. He knew very well, his attorney knew what had happened. He committed perjury, and the DA in this county, in their closing statement, got up and told this jury the rule of law must be followed. In all cases, it must be followed. Well, a crime was committed in that courtroom. They saw it, and we want to see the rule of law followed now, and Gerald Lindner died for perjury.
Pat Harris, I just have to reiterate, despite the fact that you make this claim that there was perjury committed, we have to also add we don't have any proof that there was a crime committed because there was never a charge of crime due to the statute of limitations. But I will be fascinated to see what happens going forward, and if the prosecutor does decide to come forward and pursue a perjury case against Father Lindner. In the meantime, I do appreciate the both of you. Mr. Lynch, thanks very much for coming on and sharing your story with us. And
thanks for having me.
And also Pat Harris, thank you to both of you. I hope we can continue talking to you about this and where this story goes. Thanks.
Look forward to it.
We got a stunning blow to Syrian President Bashar al-Assad today. One of his top generals, he's out of there. He has defected. Doesn't get any worse than that for a president, but could it be the beginning of the end? Could it be a domino effect? Will more walk from that embattled president? The story next.